you mentioned the rock bottom you thought was at 18, checking in and getting help. What was that other rock bottom that you discovered?
Yeah, I think the reason I thought getting help was the rock bottom was because of society's view of something like rehab. Even though at the time I actually was like, I think this is a healthy decision. Like, I think it's actually a turning point. But it turns out that I had been avoiding everything that I was feeling for years. And so when I started to come online again and my body was noticing what was going on, a lot of it felt quite unmanageable. And I no longer could just dissociate and check out. I was like, all right, I'm doing the work here. Now I got to feel it and process, express, release. But one of the rock bottoms that followed, well, there's a few. One of them happened with my faith paradigm. Like I said, I joined at a certain age, seeking a certain thing. Then I discovered that I am queer, and that sort of, I had to go back and revisit certain things I had learned and internalized, and thoughts I had towards queer folks at the time that were very homophobic and harmful. And so I had to deconstruct. And anyone who's gone through a deep mindset shift knows, like, when you're floating in liminal space from one way to another way, it's like you're suspended in midair and you're like, I don't feel like I have a foundation. And the sense of purpose, the identity, everything just gets real confusing.
Yeah.
So there was some confusion there. Then I learned about some unfortunate things happening with my business affairs. And that set me in a place where I wasn't able to continue the path that I thought I was on. And it knocked me back quite a bit. Then after that, I learned about, I'll save this for a deeper memoir at some point. But it was almost like a series of dominoes, and each area of my life that was holding it up. Faith, health, family, finances, it just all, like, one after the other. Significantly difficult things happened. And at the end of that series, a particularly traumatizing experience happened. And that's where I was like, all right, I don't know how to cope with this number of things from every direction. And I, found myself thinking about ending everything, and that felt like a different low compared to just saying my health is out of order. Because when I went into rehab, I was like, I know that there's something on the other side of this. But when you reach a point where the mind can't see anything on the other side, that felt like a different level of hopelessness.
The thought of suicide, how much did that scare you in that moment where you didn't see, like, a fix like you did by being able to go to rehab or work on this?
Right.
Like, did you just feel lost in that moment?
When you can't see any possibility, yes, there's an absence of hope and there's a feeling of despair, but then there's also just an empty numbness as well, where you're like, I'm almost more scared that I'm feeling nothing over this, because this is an intense thought, and yet it's not like a peace, but I'm like sort of on the ride and not in control of it, seemingly. It's how it felt for me. And as your mind toys with ideas further, and, for me, it kind of like, it came back, it was recurring, and it got more clever each time. The one thing that gave me a sense of hope, that felt like, man, that must have been that was a life-saving thought wherever it came from, was realizing there was a strong part of me that did want everything to end, but it wasn't life altogether. It was the life I had been living. It was the version of myself that I I was ready to shed.
Mhm.
It was habits and relationships and things that needed to change. And I just had that small little thought that said, I hear you. I just want to remind you, you may feel like you want to end everything. Perhaps you do want to end some things, but it's not life in itself. And I know that that's not everyone's experience, like very different relationships to those kinds of thoughts, and also different opportunities to work through them and access to community or not. But that was like it helped me in a very specific moment that could have gone a different direction.